everybody, and welcome along to the Pinnacle tier of One Hub Racing. This is season 19, round 9, coming to you from USA, the CODA track, which was just used in real life F1. As always, I am your commentator, Indecisive, and joining me again, we couldn't resist it with the magic that he brought to us before. So welcome back, Quinn. How are you doing tonight?
Yeah, I'm doing really good. I'm doing fantastic. I'm just really excited to be here. Really excited to see what Netski and City have to offer us.
Yes, it's been a very, very topsy-turvy championship. Sly Guy started off on absolute fire and no one could get near him, and then he's had a bit of a dip in form in recent weeks, and that means Netski now has regained the championship lead in this tier, and it's been absolutely incredible, the turnaround. And I will hand back to Quinn in a second for him to do the permutations of if we could crown a champion tonight, who he could be and why. But I just want to let everyone know at this second that it is technically overcast right now, and we are due a dry race though, so we might get a little bit of rain at the end of quali. But anyway, over to you for the permutations.
I need to find them.
Oh, they're there. Don't worry, it's a good one this week.
It's in... Wait a minute, there we go. Okay, so if Netski wins with the fastest lap, Silly must finish third, otherwise Netski wins the championship. If Netski wins, Silly must finish fourth. If Netski finishes second, Silly must finish fifth with fastest. No, that is sixth. Yep, sixth with fastest lap. If Netski finishes third, Silly must finish seventh or eighth with fastest lap. If Netski finishes fourth, Silly must finish ninth or 10th with fastest lap. Netski finishes fifth, Silly must finish 11th or P12 with fastest lap. And then from P6 to doesn't score points, if Netski does any of those, the championship will go to the last race of the season.
Wow, that's going to be a tall order, because I don't think I've seen Netski finish outside the top 5 very often and at all. But even then, if he has done that, he's probably picked up points in the process. I can just check his record on that. Yeah, he's finished in the points actually from 29 finishes. He's always finished in the points. So if he finishes, he's in the points. So it's a tall order now, but it's very easily pulled back for the championship contender there. And in a second, we are going to see who's where in the pecking order. But for now, dashboard, it's lighting up. You have Owen Wyatt fastest in sector 3 at the moment. He's provisionally pole, but I've got a feeling that we'll see some quicker times. But if it starts to rain at any point, which it might do, I don't know, it could be a very topsy-turvy grid, which could definitely excite the potential championship deciders. But
yeah, definitely.
There are 3 drivers there on a fastest sector for all of them. So Netski has fastest sector 1, Tom Robbo has fastest sector 2, and as I mentioned, Owen Wyatt best sector 3. But talking of Tom Robbo, he was chosen for the drivers press conference, and he was asked last season in Steer. He was performing really well, however he hasn't been showing the same form this season. Why was this, and are there still some secrets to be revealed about your pace in the final 2 rounds? And he replied that this season he's using no assists. Last season he did have line on, and that's part of the problem. He hasn't quite found as much time each week to practice either, with real life stuff getting in the way, which we could all appreciate at this point. But without the setbacks, he definitely could have had more potential. But it is what it is. The last 2 rounds of tracks he haven't done very much yet, so probably won't see much improvement. It's a bit of a shame, but obviously if you're running less assists, fair play to you. it's a tricky order to go through the assist barrier, and some people are still trying to get through that in all the tiers, so that's always something to look out for.
Yeah, definitely. Just looking at cons though, please forgive me if I'm wrong, but I thought I just saw some raindrops. It might be me seeing things, but I thought I just did.
Yeah,
maybe it's just my eyesight.
It might be, but I did exactly the same thing a couple of weeks ago. I could have sworn it was raining. It wasn't, but I was about to start getting a little bit argumentative about it. But no, at the moment, it's not raining, but that could very easily change in the next few moments, which could definitely shake up the qualifying order.
Yeah, definitely. With Silly down in 11th, he is on a fast lap at the moment, but if it were to stay like this, it would really be, well, detrimental to his title hopes. But as we are looking on to the qualifying, I just want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors and partners here at One Hub Racing. First of all, we have Next Level Racing, who sponsor the league by providing an NLR Direct Drive stand to our Driver of the Season, which is a new award to One Hub this season. We also have 3M Sim Racing, who sponsor the league by providing a pair of their sim racing gloves to the driver with the most combined poles and fastest laps. And our partners are Vespertine. We are partnered with them, who support our championship prizes, and last but no means least, we have ERT, who partner our ERT Going Gets Tough award. Not to mention, we also have to give a big thanks to Thibaut for providing the task system to us. Without it, we wouldn't have all of this in-depth analysis that we're able to bring to everyone.
Yeah, that's absolutely a great point to have, and it's definitely helped us with our commentary duties here in One Hub Racing, having the TAS available to us. It's just an incredible extra tool we can have, and we can see who's got damage, how much damage they have, because sometimes it's not only visual. Sometimes we can tell if a driver's struggling with fuel load, so they have to back off a bit, or if they have damage to the floor, perhaps. We can see that now, and we can always check who's just I've said that TAS is not really working that well for me right now. I think it's just refreshing itself. But yeah, there's you can check the damage of all the tyres and see exactly how much tyre wear they're getting as well, and that definitely helps key us up. But Sly Guy is having a bit of issue trying to get a lap on the board. He's invalidated a couple of times, but the Matter is just on a lap now, so I'm going to watch him and see if he can put his AlphaTauri up there towards provisional pole position, perhaps. He has set his fastest Sector 1 of a 25.4, which puts him a little bit outside of the potential pole position time, but certainly he'll be looking to get up inside the top 5 perhaps with that.
Yeah, as we were talking about that, I was on board with Silly as he went past the line on his previous lap. It was invalidated, but it was a 130.9, so that would have put him pole by 3/10. So yeah, he's definitely got the pace, but maybe this is a track that he just struggles a little bit with track limits. I mean, everyone does, but for someone like Silly, he's must be really struggling with it. As Netsky puts in a 130.7, 5/10 faster than Tom Robert. He's really coming to show why he should be winning this championship.
Yes, he's doing the best when it really matters towards the end of the season, which is great. And as we mentioned, there we go, Matter goes P9. He is, of course, on the medium tyre, so that is probably why his times were a little bit slower than I was perhaps anticipating. Didn't catch that, sorry about that. But yeah, Netsky, like I said last week, I think it was, last time he took the championship lead, he went on to lift the trophy, so I'm sure he'll be hoping to channel that again. And of course, just to remind you, he doesn't need to win this race to win the win the trophy, but it would definitely help. But he's almost there. But 2 races still to go, very different tracks. There's still a lot of racing still to do here in the Pinnacle tier in One Hub Racing.
Yes, just looking over the rivalry questions that we had, I don't believe any of our Pinnacle tier drivers answered the questions, as well. Neither of them are actually racing here tonight, but it did involve Henry and Pierre Papi. They were involved in an incident last week which resulted in Pierre Papi getting a time penalty. So to Henry, it was you were on for a good result until Pierre Papi caused some trouble last week. How can he be cleaner so he doesn't get involved in any incidents? Of course we don't have an answer, but then it was said to Pierre Papi, you are ahead of him in the championship, but he hasn't had a pole position yet. What makes you stand out over Henry? Is it the pole position, consistency during the race, or is it something else? So, what would you imagine that Henry and Pierre Papi would answer those?
Well, that's they're fantastic questions this week, as they are most weeks here in the media. But I think I definitely am more a fan of the question towards Pierre Papi. Ahead of him in the championship, I think I would have answered along the lines of, I think I've just got the better package, the better car, the better setups, and the better racing instinct over my over Henry. But if I was Henry and I was asked that question, I would possibly say, yeah, incidents happen, but I'd just like to gently remind him how to not do that again, so he doesn't make a habit of it. I think all drivers make mistakes. It's how they learn from it. So I think I'd use my experience in that regard to try and calm down the driver that had an incident with me. But Khalifa is now on a lap, also on the mediums, which could be a very profitable tactic, especially this week with such few numbers, with a few last minute dropouts for personal reasons and other issues as well. That could definitely be part of Sly Guy's thinking as well. If he can't get a lap in, I don't think it's going to matter too much, because he can start on a slightly better tyre, which will give him, in theory, an advantage the deeper into the race they go. But at the moment, with just over 3 minutes left to go in qualifying, Netsky is on provisional pole and Sly Guy yet to set a time down in P12.
Yeah, just on board with Silly. If you want to take us through his quali lap, then that would be good.
Yep, okay, so he's opened the DRS nicely. He's just taken about 150 metres, just where that white line is. You start to get the brakes, and then you get heavier through turn 1, which has about 53 lines through it, so there could well be a bottleneck at the start of the race, and that's very close to an invalidation there through the S section, which is very notoriously tricky as well, through the qualifying section, which is probably the biggest place for invalidations in qualifying and in the race for track limit infringements. But no such dramas on this lap, and very close again. You just kept enough of the tyre on the track for it to be a valid lap time, and he's taken these corners very, very aggressively. He's driving a little bit like he's got something to prove, I guess, which is a weird thing to do given you were leading the championship for much of the season. But he wants that lead back, and he's going to take it squealing and just any necessary means. And wow, he got away with that. I'm sure if I tried that line, I'd get a invalidation, but that's led to a purple sector 2, so that is something that is always helpful, and that's a legit sector 2 as well. It's not the game pretending it's quickest, it's actually lit up on Taz. He's about 2/10 quicker than anyone else has been before through there. But of course, sector 3 still belongs to Zane, but 1 and 2 to Netsky, and that's a little bit of, oh, that's unfortunate for Sly Guy. That's not his fault. He had a little bit of understeer or something because he hit the curb, but what would he have done? That would have put him comfortably pole again. He's having issues, and he may go again, but I don't know if he's gonna bother at this late stage. He might just say, I'll start on 12 on the medium tyres and I'll go win this race.
I just don't think he's got enough fuel to do enough, because when he finished a lap he had about half a lap of fuel left, which definitely is not enough. But he's still going, but he's just sliding. Yeah, he's avoided this lap, which is unfortunate to see. But we do have some more people on laps. We do have Tom Robbo, who is just over half a tenth down, but he is actually a tenth and a half up on his time, so could be a big improvement. Could see him jump up to P3. See what his final sector is for Tom Robbo as he goes round the infamous triple right-hander, which is tricky to navigate. And see the last corner, which he can easily invalidate at. He takes it well right to the edge of the track, and let's see what his time is. Puts in P2.
Yeah, that was very, very close to the limit, but that's a purple sector 3 there as well, and time is now up, so if he hadn't started a lap, he won't be allowed to finish it. Zane is done for the session, as is Netsky. Can he be beaten to provisional pole? Tom Robbo probably won't do that, and in fact I can tell you he won't, but Ryderdal is on a lap. He's just coming through the end of sector 1. Yeah, is anyone else a bit further on in the lap? I'll just have a look at the mini-map. We've got a McLaren just about to finish a lap. I think it's not Conzo, it's Nepitius. Goes in the pit lane. Conzo is still on a lap. He's going to improve, but is it going to be enough to get him in the top 8? Mata is currently 8th, and he's finished in the session. Sly Guy is definitely finished, so he'll be starting 12th unless someone gets a penalty in the last grid penalty in the last few stages. Tom Robbo there with a creative interpretation of track limits, but he's not on a lap anyway, so I think he'll be okay with that one. Ryderdal is currently, I think, the only man to deny Netsky at the moment, so it could be an all Ferrari, all front row, but let's see what happens in the final sector. Anything can happen. It's definitely tricky, especially through this flat out kink there. You've got to shift down to 5th gear there, just hold it nicely on the exit, and yep, definitely keep it there, and you've got to hit that curve exactly right, and he's going to go across the line, but he can't get the front row. He's only going to be P3. Netsky surely now definitely has pole position for the race, which is quite an astounding achievement considering all the people that could have beaten him couldn't get a lap in or just had issues on their flying laps. So that is one small step towards potentially lifting a trophy, but I won't say too more than that because commentators' curses, especially at this stage of the season. You might not see me next week, frankly, if that happens, so I'm going to be very careful with my words there, but Sly Guy could well have the advantage in the race, starting 12th.
Yeah, he's going to have quite a big advantage if there is a dry race. Just looking at tyres, everyone did qualify on the softs, actually, apart from Khalifa, who's starting 10th on the mediums. They are 2 laps old, but you have everyone else. Maybe apart from, well, the only people I could see starting on mediums would be Khalifa, Rafa, and maybe Silly. So yeah, in P1 we have Netsky, who qualified 2 tenths faster than Robbo, who joins him on the front row. On the second row we have Ryderdal in P3 and OP Zane in P4. In the third row we have Owen Wyatt and Nepitius of Red Bull and McLaren. Then we have Legend in P7 in the Haas and Conzo in P8 in the McLaren. Then we have in P9 and 10 the 2 AlphaTauris, of course, with Khalifa qualifying on the medium tyres. And then the last row of the grid, the last row of this grid in this race, we have Rafa and Silly Sly Guy. So Silly didn't manage to put up a representative lap time, so that's why he has a 1 minute 50. But yeah, you'd sort of have to favour Netsky to win this race now. But of course, you never rule out Silly. As I've learned before, you never rule him out.
Yeah, you can't really rule anyone out in this tier. That is why it is the Pinnacle tier, and anyone is just as capable of winning a race than any of their current competitors. But at this stage, I'd just like to take a moment to look at who would be hot and cold if either of them were here, but unfortunately they're not here. But hot would have been ERT Samba, with no penalties for him last week. Meant he finally did get his first win of the season officially. As we know, he got removed from P1 the week before for 5 seconds and dropped him off the podium. Such as his luck there with the late safety car, but you could tell that he really wanted to win. He did have to work for it last time, but his strategy call was spot on, and he did gain quite a few positions in the championship due to this. And of course, Cold would be Danestar, which is now why I've subbed him out of my fantasy team. He was unlucky in Austria, got damage early on, and that did lead to his retirement, and he just needs to get back to what it is, to getting back towards near the front. He's got the pace, he just can't really afford to be in any more incidents, and obviously with him not being here, he's not going to be in any incidents. But I think overall, just take the picture that what you do is good, it's just you've been unlucky with incidents, so avoid the incidents and you should get yourself further up the grid week on week.
Yeah, definitely. I just want to go through quickly the Stewards Reports that we've had. There was only one incident in Pinnacle tier, as we covered in the rivalries. Of course, the incident involving Henry and Pierre Papy, the decision was a 15-second time penalty to Pierre Papy, which is 1.5 penalty points, and the reasoning was Pierre Papy and Danestar battling into turn 3. Pierre Papy loses control of his car on exit of the corner, which causes damage to Henry. The stewards decided to add 15 seconds of time penalties and 1.5 penalty points to Pierre Papy for causing a collision, as they cannot determine whether he lost control of his car on his own or as a result of contact, due to Pierre Papy not providing any evidence. And in terms of readying up penalties and task infringements, there was nothing to mention for Pinnacle tier, so only that one incident, which resulted in Pierre Papy having 15 seconds of time penalties.
Yeah, as you say, it's increasingly likely that if a driver doesn't provide any proof of incidents, then they're probably guilty. Otherwise, they provide it. But anyway,
yeah.
Just touching on your point from qualifying, yes, you are correct. Khalifa, Rafa and Sly Guy have all gone to the mediums, and everybody else qualified on the softs, so they won't get fresh tyres at the start, so they could well be... They could try something wacky like pit at the end of lap 1 for some medium tyres or something, hope there's a later safety car to get back on some fresher rubber at the end, but you never know. A wacky strategy could well win out today, but it's nice and blue overhead at the moment, so I don't think, as I said at the top, there's no real threat of rain in the race. It should be a dry race with a track temperature of 30 degrees, nice and toasty for those tyres, and the air temperature of 21, so it's not going to be too hot to dissipate. It's going to go filtering through, and tyres should well behave themselves. But that is quite a intriguing battle we have up to the run up into turn 1 today. As we mentioned in qualifying, there's several ways you can take turn 1, and hopefully all these guys get through it at the first time of asking.
So yeah, we've got the two title contenders, one who's qualified on pole and one's that's at the back of the grid, so it's going to be an interesting dynamic in terms of tyre strategy. Maybe we might see a really aggressive strategy from Silly, maybe going for the mediums and then 2 sets of softs, which is the ideal strategy, but it's just in what order. And then the top 9, you may see them do either a soft medium or even a soft medium soft, so they can get on that faster tyre when they have the least amount of fuel in their car.
Yes, that is a good point, and the 5 lights are on, and the 5 lights are now off, and away they go here in CODA in the USA Grand Prix. And Netsky has such a good start. You think he's going to keep the lead into turn 1, but Tom Robbo's not going to give it to him easy, and they are pretty much wheel to wheel there. But Netsky gets through, keeps his position, and Ryderdal behind his teammate there. It's a Ferrari sandwich there for Tom Robbo, so that might not feel too good, but Sly Guy's already gained a position at the back over the matter. Of course, they're on separate teams, so that wouldn't be team orders getting out of the way. He's just had a slightly better start, perhaps, and he's looking to line up a move on Rafa already as well, the other medium runner there. And Khalifa is in P9. He's gained a position off the start. I'm not sure who. I think Matters had a shocking start there. He's down to P12. I think he started in the top 10 on the softs, but no, Khalifa did, I know that. And yeah, anyway, whatever happens, we have action all down the field here. And just to remind everybody, we haven't had chance to do it so far today, but Netsky currently holds a 16-point lead over Sly Guy. So that tells me if Sly Guy can finish second, he would take the lead by a point. There's 17 points for P2 in this league, in this format, and of course fastest lap points could also be a part of it as well. You could get that inside or outside the top 10. So there's many possibilities, which I'm sure we'll cover as we heard at the top of qualifying with the permutations. But at the moment, Netsky holds the advantage and is the fastest man out there. But his title rival is charging through the field. He's now in P9, and I think we're going to stay on board with him to see how much damage he can do on this stint, because he looks to be in very, very fine form today.
Yeah, he's just got the soft runners to get past now, which may be more difficult to navigate than the two medium runners who he's already got past. As we know, the soft tyre is the fastest compound, it's the grippiest compound as well. But silly with his pace, it doesn't really matter what tyre he's on. He could be on the hards for all we know, and he could still be charging through the field.
Don't mention hard tyres to me. Not this week.
But yeah, everyone is getting close to each other. There's only one person who's really had a gap bridged to the DRS, as there's a little bit of contact between Epidius and Owen Wyatt, but there is that 1 second gap forming between Legend and Owen Wyatt / Epidius. And there's also quite a gap forming between Silly Sly Guy and Rafa, so we're already seeing the little groups form, little DRS trains form. And if you're Silly Sly Guy, you do not want to be caught up at the end of one of these trains, because it's hard enough to get out of it if you're right at the front of it, but if you're at the back of it, it's even harder.
Yeah, absolutely. It is quite a curse and a... well, it's a blessing and a curse, isn't it, really, being in the DRS train? Because yes, the people on the quicker tyres can technically take you with them, but of course when the DRS train starts, you're not going to be able to overtake them at the same time. So it's going to be very, very tricky to see how he's going to manage this race. But Owen Wyatt, as you mentioned earlier, he's having a little bit of a ding-dong battle already with the McLaren, and so now he's down to P8. He's going to be vulnerable to Sly Guy. Will he make it down the inside? No, and he thought better of it, but he could have stuck his nose up there if he wasn't challenging for a championship. And I think that's why he's decided to wait, because now he's got the better run down the next straight and better run onto the straight. Perhaps he can use the slipstream of Owen Wyatt, who does have DRS, but it doesn't matter. Sly Guy just drops him like, well, he did have DRS himself, did Sly Guy, but he just dropped him like he was on the soft tyres. But of course, Sly Guy is on the mediums for now, and I think he's just able to utilise those tyres a lot better than the soft tyres are working right now. But later on in the race, those soft tyres can go longer. As you saw in a couple of tiers earlier, you can take them longer than you may possibly think. So it's not out of the question. You can go mediums and 2 soft stints at the end, perhaps, depending on circumstances, but that wouldn't be the ideal strategy, but it could be done.
Yeah, definitely it could be done, but I just had a little scroll through everyone's ERS, and the only 2 or 3 people who have a good ERS is Netsky in first with 87, and then you have Owen Wyatt in 9th with about 80, and then everyone else, well, Konzo's on 65 and Silly's on 50. Everyone else, I believe, is getting close to below 50%. Yeah, everyone from Silly down is on decent ERS, and then Netsky's on near enough 90%.
Yeah, well, he's out in front. He doesn't really need to use any. At the moment, he's just quicker than anybody else out there, as you see by the fastest lap times of the race. But he's definitely not going to have it all his own way, of course. Later on in the race, he could well be under pressure. But at the moment, he's just doing everything that he needs to do to potentially close in on another crown. But of course, you know, Sly Guy has a lot to say about that today, and I don't think 7th would be good enough. but it's going to be close towards the end of the race. How that affects the championship standings, but yeah, it should be a grandstand finish, and we set up very nicely here on lap 4 in One Hub Racing.
Yeah, just looking back over the permutations for the title, and if Netsky wins the race, Silly needs to finish 4th, so he's not that far away from 4th actually. Just looking at the times to the leader, he's about 2.5 seconds back from Legend in 4th, so it's not a horrifically large gap that he needs to build, and of course he is on the mediums, so the alternate strategy, he could most likely be on the 2 sets of the fastest tyre for his last 2 stints. And everyone else who started on the softs will have to go onto a set of mediums, so this could really play into Silly's hands.
It definitely could. He's definitely on the better strategy for the moment, as you quite rightly say, but he's looking to make short work of Konzo as well. He's getting right up to his rear spoiler there, but now he has DRS and he should fly past Konzo as well, so that is another position for Sly Guy. Next up is the top 5, and Legend is down to P5 now as he's just been overtaken by Zane on the straight, so that's an extra incentive there, as he can certainly see the back of those 2 cars as well. If they hold each other up battling, then Sly Guy could take both of them down that straight, and who knows what's going to happen. If he gets 4th very quickly, he can quite conceivably take the lead of this race very shortly, as the soft runners will be pitting much earlier than he will.
Yeah, definitely. From my experiences in my race today, your first set of softs, the ones that you qualify on, you can only really take them, I'd say, about 7 or 8 laps, so you maybe start to see people pitting next lap or the lap after, but knowing these guys, they'll probably want to extend their first stint as much as they can, or they might want to do an undercut and try to get off the softs within the next couple laps. But yeah, it's Silly, he could go 14 or 15 laps on these mediums, and then if he goes 14 laps he could do a double 7 lap stint on softs, or he could do, if he goes 15 laps he could do a 7 lap stint and then a 6 lap stint. It all depends on whether there's safety cars, whether there's virtual safety cars. As you know, virtual safety cars do save a little bit of time when making stops, but not as much as full safety cars. The full safety car will pretty much halve the time lost, as we saw Owen Wyatt dropping back even further. He's now in 11th. He's splitting the 2 Alpha Tauris, but he is looking to go around the outside of Khalifa, which he might look to make it the inside. He gets an excellent exit off of the corner into the triple right-hander side by side, but Owen Wyatt just about gets ahead of Khalifa, so back up into P10 for Owen Wyatt as Ryder Dow comes into the pits.
Yeah, and Owen Wyatt follows them in as well, but crucially Netsky stays out for another lap. And yeah, you definitely, if you are Sly Guy, which neither of us are unfortunately, that's why we're watching him race and not racing him, but he's up into P3 on the medium tyres, and as you say, he's definitely got plenty of options at the end. And of course, if there is any safety cars, that could definitely help his progress as well, because he could, I mean, it depends on when the safety car comes, because technically you can pit twice under the same safety car, get your stops out of the way, but I don't know if he'd want to be willing to risk that today. But it's definitely possible. If you're sort of perhaps struggling for form around here, you could try something mad like that. If you're down in 15th and just trying to entertain yourself or whatever you want to do, that's definitely valid for them. But it's a possibility he could do that as well, but he's a racer. I don't think he's going to try anything wacky like that, but never rule anything out in the Pinnacle tier. Yeah, it's certainly a great start for Sly Guy on lap 7 here, and that's about a third distance if my maths is correct. It might not be. Yeah, it's a quarter distance. In fact, that is actually quite correct there. So, quarter way through this race, Sly Guy is doing what he needs to do, and Netsky's doing what he needs to do. So, pretty much a fantastic race of both of them at the moment. But who's going to blink first? There you go. You have Netsky and Tom Robbo in the pit. Sly Guy will not. He's round the final corner. He inherits the lead of this race, and how far can he take these tyres is really going to determine whether it's Netsky or Sly Guy that wins this race today.
So just looking at our task system, let's have a look and see what condition his tyres are in, as he does go very, very wide there. I'm not sure what's happening to Silly here, but he's all over the place. But yeah, looking at the tyre conditions, the 3 medium runners who are yet to pit, Khalifa's are definitely in the worst condition, being over nearly 10% worse than Silly. Silly's front left and front right are on 32 and 30, and then his rear left and rear right are both on about 28-29%. So he's really looking after him, and hopefully he can extend this stint even further. So you don't want to get it into a case where you pit so late that maybe the people behind you have already done 2 stops. So maybe he would want to leave it. He could pit now, really, because you can do about 11 or 12 laps on a new set of softs. But he does decide to stay out. He could have done 2 10-lap stints on the soft tyres, but chooses to stay out. And I've got a feeling he's probably going to go to about lap 14 on these tyres, so he can do 2 7-lap stints and try get the most out of the soft tyres.
Yeah, that would certainly be how I'd be thinking, but of course, you mentioned tyre wear earlier. Remember, Khalifa did do a couple of laps in qualifying on those, so that would definitely explain the 10% more wear that he's got. He's put high stress through them already, whereas now Sly Guy is just beginning to start to wear his tyres a little bit harder as he is pushing. And look at the gap. It's about 3 seconds back to Rafa. He's absolutely flying on these tyres right now, he's Sly Guy. And Netsky's down in P5, so that's yeah, it's definitely a good first stint there for Netsky as well. He's out in P5 and he's definitely in cleanish air. He's actually got a little bit of slipstream from Rydal. He got a little bit closer there into the braking zone, but not quite close enough to try anything down the inside. But he's definitely pulling the gap on Tom Robbo, so it's definitely a fantastic race, and no matter where you look, we're going to have action today.
Yeah, just looking at, I was just watching Rydal, and he's actually closing the gap towards Silly, albeit it is a couple of attempts each lap, but he is closing the gap. And the same with Rafa, he's closed the gap a little bit as well. So Rydal's doing a good job of closing the gap on these fresh tyres, and Netsky, well, Rydal's just pulling Netsky along with him. And with him is Tom Robbo, Zane, Legend as well. So it might be very difficult for Silly to actually get a good result here, because he's having these wild moments of like having oversteer and just little snaps of oversteer here and there. But he's got this train of 5 drivers who are being pulled along. And I've got a feeling that Silly's actually going to, if he was to pit, he'd come out behind all 5 of them.
Yes, he could well end up behind all 5 of them at some point, but at the moment I think he's just trying to concentrate on trying to give that a minimum, as Legend gets a 3-second time penalty, which I had to check who it was then, but it's neither of the championship contenders, so that really doesn't matter there. But I think if there's any communication in the Ferrari garage, then you would think that Rydal just eases off the throttle as about now, and Netsky breezes through. It's indeed he does, and there you go, a move for Netsky. That certainly gives him a bit of a stronger position up into P4, but of course still a long way to go here on lap 10 here at the Circuit of the Americas.
So yeah, we do have Netsky. He's coming really close to getting it under that 12-second mark, which, to be honest, the undercut here is really powerful. As you see, Silly actually coming in now. I'd imagine he'd be coming onto a set of softs as Khalifa comes in as well. Just want to keep an eye on what tyre he puts on. He puts on a set of mediums, which is surprising, but we'll have to see where it comes out. It is behind Khalifa. Oh no, getting close to Khalifa. Khalifa's actually dropped down to 11th. Konzo is actually going side by side with Silly, but Silly does stay ahead, and the gap from Silly to Netsky is about 6.5 seconds. So it is worse off from before the first pit stops. I do believe he was about 3.5 seconds behind, but yeah, he's lost about 3 seconds in all of these pit stops, but he can see the group, he can see the back of Legend, you can see it going down the back straight, as we do have quite a close battle on track. We do have Legend still on the back of Zane. It is within 2 tenths, but Silly is really trying to close this gap and really trying to put as much pressure on these guys ahead of him as he can, really.
Yeah, that's all you can do. You need to put as much pressure on the people around you as you possibly can. But Legend's having a very strong race today as Rodadal gets a time penalty, and Rafa, I was going to say Rafa's the only one yet to pit, but he's just this second, as I'm saying that, gone into the pit lane. So that is everyone doing 1 of 2 mandatory stops. Of course, we haven't seen, I don't want to say it, but we haven't seen someone in this tier forget to do 2 stops for quite a while. Let's hope today's not the day where they decide that that's something they want to entertain, I guess. Words are very hard to find right now, as I'm so excited by this action. I literally don't know where to look. I'm all over the place, so apologies if you're wanting to see a certain battle. I don't know where to look or what you want to see, so I'm trying to get everything in, and in doing that I'm missing absolutely everything, so whoopsie. Anyway, Tom Robbo is having a decent race, and I mentioned him because as we talked about him, he was chosen for the drivers' press conference as we mentioned earlier. But I think we should probably sum up the standings real quick, because we haven't had a chance to do that today. Netsky, championship leader and race leader, is on 106. Sly Guy, championship contender, in second place with 90 points, but today at the moment he is down in P6, which wouldn't be enough. With Netsky doing everything that he needs to do, that could wrap it up, but stay tuned because there's plenty of racing still to go here. Anyway, Zane is in P3 on 58 points. Dane not here on 56 points, so he could lose a few positions. Ryder Dahl is in P5 in the standings on 53, and then Konzo on 50, Tom Robbo on 48, Thomas on 40, Pierre Papi on 31, Legend on 30, so he's at the moment he could jump quite a few drivers there with his 5th place as it stands, but he does have penalties, so could he fall? But Sly Guy, the medium tyres are the best to be on at the moment. He's quickest out of everyone on track, although Khalifa just takes it off him. He's on the soft tyres, and of course that wouldn't really change much, because I don't know if Sly Guy's even thinking about fastest lap. I think he just wants to win as many races as he possibly can, which is a good strategy to have. But Khalifa, current fastest man on track, is in 11th place of the standings on 22, as is Owen Wyatt, who it's had a quiet season by his standards. He's quick at times, but he's just not always been able to string his performances together to get the results that he perhaps deserves. Arnold not here, has had a personal issue, unfortunately, on 13th place with 21 points, and Vienna's on 20 points just behind him. And then you have Henry, of course, from the rivalries, not here, on 18 points, and Nepidius, who is here, down in P11, which is good enough for 2 points. He's on 17 points, so he would jump Henry. Samban not here on 15 points, as is the Matter, who is here, and he's down in P12, so that's 1 point, so he would jump anyway. And then you have Confessor on 8 points, who doesn't have any internet at the moment, so it's a shame to lose him from the races. So Red Bull, the one horse race at the moment, and Rafa rounds out the standings there, yet to score a point, but today he's in P9, so he could well be ending his duck today, but there's still a lot of racing still to go. But Impidius and Owen Wyatt are going for it round the final corner, and Impidius had such a better line. He seems to have all the grip coming through the corner, but then Owen Wyatt seems to have a better exit, so it's going to be close. But I think DRS is just going to get Impidius through into turn 1, is he? Owen Wyatt doesn't give it up easily, but he has to take a slightly different line than that. Is the move done? Is it? No, they're still at it. And Owen Wyatt, oh no, I don't think there was contact there. I think it's just pushed a little bit too hard on those tyres at that time, but that's unfortunate for Owen Wyatt.
He's a virtual safety car. Yeah,
that could save him a little bit of time loss, but
yeah,
I think the VSC should well be over by the time they get anywhere near Sector 3 or the pit lane in particular, because I was thinking if the VSC comes out at any time, they might jump into the pit lane to switch tyres, but as it stands, I don't think that's going to be in their thought processes. I don't think they're going to get a chance to pit before the VSC ends, so that's a little bit of a break. Allows me to go through the constructors, as we have Ferrari at the top on 158, Alfa Romeo on 138. As you know, it's a Ferrari Alfa sort of battle, with Nesky in the Ferrari and Sly Guy in the Alfa battling for the Drivers' Championship. They're also in a battle for constructors, but Ferrari, as it stands, are heavily outscoring the Alfa drivers, so they would extend their lead a little bit and could well win the constructors as well, but we'll keep an eye on that. Williams are in third with 89, from McLaren on 61 and Mercedes 58, Aston Martin on 56 and Haas on 50, so very close real estate between them four teams. It could change on a weekly basis or on a lap basis for them, and AlphaTauri on 37, but the Mata could certainly tap into some of his earlier form this season, and we joined about halfway through, and he's certainly helped AlphaTauri climb the leaderboard. Could he help them into the top 5? It's not beyond impossible, but it's certainly a tall order. But the next race is the final chance to try and do that, which of course is not next week, it is the week after that. And you have Red Bull and Alpine rounding out the constructors there on 36 and 30 points respectively. So it's quite an entertaining battle between everything, you know. It's anyway, virtual safety car is over, and let's have a look at see if Ryderdal is gonna play the wingman approach and just try and help Netsky pad that lead a little bit by holding up everyone, which sort of holds up Sly Guy, who's just dropped a position as he is fighting for 5th position from the Haas of Legend. They are side by side, but a little bit of real estate to be had, but that is Sly Guy through and keeps P5, but that battle I don't think is quite done, although I think yes it is now, because Sly Guy just closed off the angle the Legend might have had to try and do him through the section where Verstappen went off track a few years ago and lost his podium in the podium room. So anyway, what have you noticed in the last few moments?
I've noticed while Silly is on much fresher tyres, the front four really, they aren't really pulling away from each other. They're just, it almost seems like they're content with keeping the gap that there is, but knowing that the permutations are that if Netsky wins, I believe Silly has to finish second, is that Netsky's in a really good position having his teammate Ryderdal in second. If it was Tom Robbo in second, then they'd really have a big job of trying to hold, well, Ryderdal would have a big job trying to hold up Silly, but now Silly has passed Zane and he has his teammate Tom Robbo. Maybe there's some team orders coming through that Tom Robbo may allow Silly to come through, but as you see, Tom Robbo's in his own fight and he's trying to get P2 away from Ryderdal, so maybe there's that strategy instead of Tom Robbo getting past Ryderdale, which opens up the overtake for Silly, and then Tom Robbo letting Silly through that way. So lots of little things that could happen here, but ultimately Silly needs to get past Tom Robbo and Ryderdale.
He certainly does, but just to remind everyone of the permutations as Tom Robbo aggressively tries to break the toe, I just hope the teammates don't come together, but there you go. Sly Guy is through into P3. Netsky, if Netsky wins, as you say, Silly must finish 4th or 3rd if Netsky has the fastest lap at the end. So at the moment I don't think Netsky does. I think he's had it stolen off him by Khalifa, but yeah, it's definitely all panning out for the Ferrari team at the moment, but there's still about enough laps left for them to certainly make a mistake and have an error or something. But Sly Guy is where he needs to be, at least, and Netsky is where he needs to be. So this is a very, very fascinating finish here to round 9 of the One Hub Season 19 season around Circuit of the Americas in the Pinnacle tier. But this is quite sensational, really. You have a 5-car train for the lead.
So yeah, just something that I completely forgot. Ryderdale's got a penalty to his name. He's got 3 seconds, I believe, so as it stands the gap would be even closer and there'd only be 3 points gained from Netsky, which he is, I believe, I'll just have to check the standings. He is actually 12 points ahead, so that 3 points would basically mean that Silly has to win or finish 2nd, and he has to hope that Netsky just has the worst race of his life, really, at Imola.
Yes, it certainly is going to be a very tall order if Netsky goes into the final round with the championship lead. It's a pretty solid bet to think he's going to take home the prize, but of course we've got to get to Imola first, which is in 2 weeks, of course, as a reminder. No race next week, being the day after my birthday. That's not the real reason, but I just wanted to say that on stream. But yeah, Silly's just getting very, very close to the back of Ryderdale. Ryderdale is running out of PRS, but so is Silly. Ryderdale makes it so he's boxed in, but Silly looks like he's got moved on round the outside, and he has. He's side by side, but he has the inside line, and Silly's got up into P2, and he's right on the back of Netsky now. Yes, now is the time. He's on 3 lap pressure tyres than Netsky, so everything's pointing towards Silly to get this move done. And of course Netsky, no DRS, but just looking at his ERS, he's on 48%. Silly's only on 25 roughly, so he's got that advantage for him. Yes, he certainly does have the advantage. I was going to say, Netsky's going to look in his mirrors and he's going to have a whole lot of Alfa Romeo and not Ferrari in his mirrors, and he's got a lot of work to do with those older tyres. But of course it all depends on who pits first out of these two for the 2nd time onto which tyre do they want to use. I believe that, yeah, they still need to do a pit stop, so is the undercut going to be as powerful here as it was in the real race a few days ago, or is it going to be something that's not going to help Sly Guy's course at all? And of course I just noticed that we have lost Owen Wyatt today. He was struggling after he made his pit stop. He went onto the I believe it was hard tyres, it was, yeah, and he just couldn't get on, and I think he's retired in the pits because there's no damage report over than when he changed his wing, which I saw him do. So unfortunately Owen Wyatt is no longer racing this week, but I'm sure we'll see him at the season finale as Sly Guy makes the move for the lead of this race. But of course he does just pick up a penalty, but that's a little bit of understeer, and Netsky's going to slide back down into the lead. Contact. A little bit of contact, but this is fantastic stuff.
Silly gets an amazing exit, and as they go through a triple right-hander, Netsky doing the quote-unquote Verstappen line, hugging the triple apex corner very tight, but Netsky is still ahead, and, well, I think he may have wing damage. I think Silly may have some wing damage. Or he's maybe going for an undercut. We'll just have to see whether the Alfa Romeo team are out there with a front wing.
They shouldn't be. I don't see any damage.
So he's going for the tactical undercut.
That is a very brave move. Let's see if it works out for him. He's going to come out.
P5.
Yeah, P5. That's not the end of the world, but it's not where he wants to be either. But of course, Netsky is going to have to pit as well. And if this undercut is as powerful as it was, you will see Sly Guy will assume the lead of the race in a couple of laps' time. And that is what we call a grandstand finish here in the Pinnacle tier of One Hub Racing.
Sorry to cut you off there, but just looking at the stops, Legend has actually got the net race lead. He's done 2 stops. He's on 2 lap old mediums, and as it stands, Legend's actually got the net race lead.
Yes, that's a good point, but Sly Guy's on the soft tyres. He's much quicker than Legend, and I think he's going to get past him very shortly, as he's got the overspeed from the DRS of Legend. Let's stick with this move, as it could well be for the lead in a couple of laps when the others have... Can he get 2? No, I think he's just about got that slowed down. For a brief moment I saw, I saw Sly Guy's front wing and the pit is his rear tyres coming together there, but Sly Guy's done extremely well not to do that, and I think the pit is just... got out of the way really there to try and just not impede a total challenger and contender, which is possibly sensible, as the championship leader does now pit. Now Sly Guy is third. Can he get through into the lead? I think he will, as Netsky is still in the box there. Let's stick with Nepidius as he comes out. Oh, what is going on? The timing tower's gone insane. I was going to say, don't tell me Sly Guy's pit again, but he hasn't. He is in the lead. Legend in P2. Ryderdahl is P3. And our championship leader is only in P5 at the moment. So a bit of work to do there, and that changes things enormously.
Yeah, it really does. But as you said with Silly, Netsky is actually on 1 lap fresher soft tyres, and he's got his teammate up in third. And most importantly, Silly's teammate is behind Netsky, so Ryderdahl can play a big part in this. If he can get past Legend and then bring Netsky with him, he can really dictate where this championship goes. So Ryderdahl's got a very important role to play, as I'm just on board with him now. He looks to the inside of Legend, he gets the move done, so Ryderdahl's done his part. Netsky just needs to do his part and get past Zane and Legend.
Yes, indeed he does, but of course, catching up is one thing, but overtaking is quite another. Although having said that, Zane has just whacked it straight down the inside, first time of asking, and he seems to have got the move done, but a little bit of wheel banging. There's a Ferrari out there. Netsky as well is getting caught up in all of this. He doesn't need these two to fight so aggressively right in front of him, but I think everything is okay. I don't see any damage on the cars or on Taz. Sly Guy is getting on with what he needs to do. He needs to pad a gap and hope that Netsky gets caught up in either traffic or drama, and at the moment he's done both that. But Rafa takes the fastest lap of the race. Tom Robbo is through into P5, and that could be crucial for the Alfa Romeo charge as well. This is going down to the wire, and quite frankly, this is what we've been waiting for all season.
So as it stands with the penalty situation, Silly would actually keep the win. As it stands, Zane is only 3.3 seconds behind him, but Ryderdahl would actually drop down behind Legend. So it would be a disaster if that were to happen for Ferrari. But yeah, as it stands, Silly has the race lead, but Zane is really closing up on him as he's battling with Netsky and Ryderdahl. Let's see what the gap is now to the leader. Zane is within the 3-second time gap.
Yes, as you do say, it would be a disaster for Ferrari if that were to happen, but Ryderdahl is under extreme pressure from Zane right behind him, and they almost came together a few moments ago there, as you may have seen on the stream, but it was very good driving from both of them to not. But Netsky is just... I don't know what Netsky does here. if Netsky finishes 4th, Sly Guy must finish 9th or 10th with the fastest lap, but he's doing more than that now. He will have the race win in his back pocket if he can just keep that car between the white lines for a few more laps, because he does have a few warnings. Yeah, he has 3 warnings, so he's got a couple in hand just in case he gets really tense out there, but he wouldn't like to use them because sometimes you get the stupidest penalties. And is Netsky going to overtake his teammate and Zayn at the same time? Yes, he is. That is bravery.
Amazing move. That was an amazing move from Netsky, and that was great team play from Ryder Dahl as well, forcing Zayn to the outside and opening up the inside line for Netsky to just slot his way through. These two are just like, their synergy and just the way they race together, it's really something to behold. As Netsky does go off track, maybe, I'm not sure if that would be a warning. Just going to check how many warnings he has. Netsky's only got 1 warning actually.
Wow.
And Silly he has room for 1 more warning before another penalty.
Yes, it's always good to have room for more warnings, but very quickly you can use all that room up around this track. Yeah. But talking of which, Napidis just gets another one, but Netsky is now in P2, which is not the end of the world for Sly Guy. He'd prefer Netsky to be 5th or below, but as it sounds, it does go to next week, as Netsky will score less points today than Sly Guy, but not by much. And Sly Guy just needs to win and hope for the best. He's doing his part, but as I said earlier, Netsky is also doing his part in this fantastic title battle, and we will in a few short laps find out if we're going to the final race or not. I think we will be, but I don't want to say too much because you never know how much trouble my big mouth will get me into.
But yeah, if it stays as it is, of course the points gap between 1st and 2nd is 3 points. So with the gap in the championship being 12 points in the favour of Netsky, that gap will be shortened down to 9 points, which sort of, it narrows the margin for error. It really does, because if you're Netsky and you make a huge error at Imola in the last race of the season, the championship could be given on a silver platter to Silly. But if it's the same situation for Silly, if you make a major error at Imola, of course, for some of these people it might be a completely new racing experience. I mean, I've only watched races at Imola, I haven't actually competed in one, but it looks like it's a very good track for racing. And of course you have the very, very long pit straight, which is a DRS zone there, so right there you'd see plenty of overtakes, but doesn't really see many other opportunities as we see yellow flags in sector 3. Not sure what that was for, but yeah, back onto this race. City is really pulling away. The gap is now 5.1 seconds to Netsky, although it is falling slightly, 4.9 now. But yeah, the gap is just not closing down at all for Netsky, and Silly is looking in a very good position now to take the race win, but not gonna curse it in any way, but I think I just did. Oh well. I'll just put some of my magic on it and just, it won't happen.
Well, you never know. Magic doesn't always work straight away, but eventually it does its thing. But yeah, as you're saying about next week at Imola, that is a proper scary track. It can definitely frighten some of the drivers off the track just by being Imola itself. And of course, it's very different now to how we may remember it back in the early 90s and the different formulas that have raced there in the past. But yeah, you could certainly say that with the 9-point swing, which well, not 9 points, the 9-point gap, which is very close to being certain at this point, unless either Netsky or Sly Guy gets fastest lap of the race again. Let's just find out who that actually is at the moment. It's Rafa outside the top 10 altogether. So yeah, that could definitely, although fastest lap inside the top 10 would be Sly Guy, so that's going to be 8 points. So that's, as you say, when you were saying if, I'm not saying he would, but if Netsky does make the mistake you were talking about at Imola, that means that Sly Guy could win the title by finishing only 5th or 6th, depending on what he scores today. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on next week, but I don't think mistake is in Netsky's lexicon, so it's definitely an amazing spectacle we're going to see next week. But let's get the rest of this week out of the way first before we start talking about next week. I am very much looking forward to seeing a race at Imola though again. I say again, like we've done it in one before. I don't know if we have or not. I'd have to go through the history books on that, but it's been a while since it's been a sanctioned F1 race, so probably not. But anyhow, Opie Zane makes a move for the podium there, and Rydal drops down to P4, and Tom Robbo is getting in on that action as well. He goes around the outside, which becomes the inside for the left-hander, and they touch. I don't think there's any damage, but that's certainly going to hamper both drivers' confidence to come around the final few sweeping corners, especially if you need to be flat out with damage. You can't do that. I didn't see any damage, but Taz may have picked something up that we missed with our eyes. So let's have a quick look at that. There's no, the last damage was Rafa, although Rafa has broke his front wing again and retired from the race. Lap 27 he's done that. There's a yellow flag in sector 2. Does that mean you can still race into turn 1?
Yeah, it does.
Oh, well, there you go. Zane takes advantage of the rules and gets back.
Tom Robbo actually gets a move done through turn 1 on Rydal, so making it a good finish for Alfa Romeo if it stays like this. But the gap from Netsky to Silly is still 5 seconds. It hasn't really grown and it hasn't really shrunk, so looking a very good race for Silly. As looking back to, I just want to hop on board with Khalifa, as he is part of the closest battle on track with Rydal and Tom Robbo. Of course, Tom Robbo does not have the benefit of DRS. Rydal does not get a move done, but Khalifa gets very close to making contact, and he nearly spins from locking his brakes. So very lucky from Khalifa, but he's still in this DRS range of Rydal. And we've got a little 3-car train formed here, but it's looking like everything is going to stay as it is, touch wood. But yeah, Silly's looking very good to win this race. Of course, he has that 2.3 second buffer with the 3-second time penalty, so with the 3-second time penalty he will still finish 2.3 seconds, 2.4 now, ahead of Netsky.
Yeah, it's certainly getting there, but like you say, the gap's just not really changing. It's staying around that time, which is good for both of them. I think maybe Netsky's decided second place is good enough for me today. If you can't win second place, you don't want to be there, but you might as well just stick with what you got and take it to next week, see what happens. But I think all through the field the penalties are not going to change anything, apart from maybe the order of the McLarens in 8th. It's going to be close between the Pidius and Conzo there, but I think all the podium, yeah, the podium won't change, but all the people with penalties will probably finish as they are across the line. So that's quite a rarity, I think. Usually people with penalties go up and down, and everyone has done 2 stops there, as you can see on the screen. Not many people have gone up in this race, actually. A lot of them have gone backwards, so I think our driver of the day discussion is going to be quite short for once. I think I usually say we've got several people that could win it, but I actually don't think that's true today. But we've got the final few moments as Sly Guy comes around the final corner and he crosses the line to win the US Grand Prix. Netsky will round the final corner and finish in second. Total contenders go into next week, 9-point difference. Join us then, but we've still got some fantastic racing to finish. I'm just curious to see the McLarens in the order that they finish. I think it might well be good enough for Nepidus. He's had a slightly better final sector there, but can Konzo crawl it back over the line? No, he cannot. A few tenths off, but there you go. The Matter will finish in P10 distantly, but all eyes on the AlphaTauri, who we haven't seen much of today, although, talking of which, Khalifa has had a sensational result there for 6th place. He's capable of doing this, and this is an undercut track, and Khalifa in the past has liked to utilise it, so perhaps he's used it to his extreme advantage today. But that is the US Grand Prix in the books provisionally. I didn't see many incidents on track, so I don't think the positions will change once official results are released after Stu's inquiries. But we will go through at this stage still the provisional race order in a second. But yeah, whew, what a race that was.
Yeah, it was very, very good race for spectator. I mean, for the drivers as well, especially. It's probably not the most entertaining race if you're stuck in a DRS train, but if you are constantly in battles and you're constantly switching positions with people, it's a really good, like, it'll get your adrenaline going as a driver. It'll really, like, get you pumped up and, like, give you a good rush.
It really does give you that, exactly. But now I think I'll go through the provisional results, and then we will talk about drivers of the day, but I will let you go first on that, but I'll throw to you when I've finished this. So we have Sly Guy with the win despite the penalty, Netsky in second, Zane in third for his second penalty of the season, which is no mean feat in the season dominated by Alfa Romeo and Ferrari, and Alfa in fourth with Tom Robbo there, Rydal fifth in the other Ferrari, AlphaTauri in sixth today with Khalifa, Legend in the Haas in seventh, Nepidus takes eighth in the end, just about from his teammate ninth in the other McLaren, and then you have 10th the Matter in the other AlphaTauri, and Rafa and Owen Wyatt are non-finishers, although Rafa's still classified in the game, so I don't know if he did enough. I think he did enough to get credit for that position, but anyhow, it's time to throw to you. Who are you going to nominate as your driver of the day, and what is your question?
There's obviously one, like, quite obvious choice to give it to, but I'm actually going to give it to Khalifa. He had a good race starting from P10, finishing P6, gaining 4 positions, and he actually qualified on a medium, so he was on the alternate strategy, which we saw from Silly was a very good strategy to be on. And my question to Khalifa is, choosing to qualify on the mediums at the time, did you feel like it was going to be the right call? And did you get any practice on the alternate strategy?
That's an interesting question, and I'd quite like to find out his answer to that, so thanks for that. And now I have, I guess, usually a tricky job, but as I said before I threw to you, there's not many people that actually gain positions this week, so I think you already know what position I'm going to pick for my driver of the day, and that is going to be Sly Guy, who won the race from the back, which we kind of sort of called, so I'd like to look like a genius on that one in qualifying. But the question I'd like to ask him was, did you believe that this result was possible starting at the back, and how soon in qualifying did you realise you would have to start from the back? So those are our questions, and before we disappear for another evening, I would like to thank our magnificent sponsors and partners here in One Hub Racing. Our sponsors are Next Level Racing, who provide a Next Level Racing direct drive stand to our driver of the season, which is a new award here in One Hub Racing. And you have 3M Sim Racing, sponsored the league by providing a pair of their sim racing gloves to the driver with the most combined poles, fastest laps. And our partners, I'll move on to now, are Vespertine, who support our championship prizes, and you have ERT, who partnered the ERT Go and Get Stuff Award, which is for all drivers. To be eligible for that, you have to attend all races, do all your media obligations, and of course, come the end of the season, finish outside the top 3, as you will get a prize for that anyway. So you need to finish 4th or below in the drivers, and you will be eligible. And if there are multiple people left in it by the end of the season, then I think it will be Jess that spins a lucky wheel, and just like I did last season, it could be you that wins it this if you do everything that we've just mentioned. And of course, another shout out to our legend on the TAS system, Tebow, who without it we would not have all the insight of weather that we do ahead of time, and we would not be able to see if drivers' tyres are about to explode or not. So thank you to our partners, our sponsors, and Tebow for the TAS. And I think that just about does it here this week from One Hub Racing, unless there's anything that we've missed that you want to speak about right now.
I think that's everything covered, really. It was very, very interesting race. Of course, we aren't here next week for the race, but we'll join you the week after for season finale here in Pinnacle tier, and we're racing at Imola, which I believe hasn't been an F1 game since F1 2013. So for some of these drivers, they might never have actually raced it on an F1 game, and for others might be a bit of nostalgia having a league race at Imola. So it'll be very interesting to see who's on top in that race. Of course, being a season finale with Netsky and Silly fighting it out for the championship.
Yes, absolutely. It is going to be quite a spectacle we're going to have in 2 weeks. Just to remind everyone, if they missed the announcement just now, we're not here next week as a league, not us as individuals. The league's taking a 1 week break just to, as I mentioned in the race, I'd like to say it's because everyone's giving me the day off because it's my birthday on Thursday, but it's not really. It's for bonfire night, but I'll take the credit if you want. And whatever happens, we are going to crown another champion here in the Pinnacle tier in 2 weeks. Will it be Netsky? Will it be Sly Guy? Find out with us here in the Pinnacle tier. And it's good night from myself and Quinn for another week. We will see you next time. Good night, everybody. Thank you for watching. And of course, before we go, just make sure if you do like and subscribe us on YouTube, and if you feel like having a go maybe next week or next season, feel free to sign up for the league, although I think sign-ups are actually closed for this season, so it will be for next season, but come and have a go anyway. And you'd be commentated on by people like us, and frankly that is quite an awesome league. So thank you everyone for watching, and I am definitely going this time. Good night everyone. Thank you.